Good morning, Discovery. We've already choreographed your downlink video from yesterday.
Morning, Houston. We were thinking the same thing. In fact, we got prepped for this flight by watching 2010 in crew quarters, and when we saw Mir up here, it sure felt like we needed that music in the background, so we'll take it now. That was great.
Our pleasure.
Okay, we copied that. And if there's anything you can do to ensure a night landing, that'd be great.
Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. We're receiving television from Discovery's cameras as Discovery passes just off the southern Australian coast. Discovery's course will take it to just over the northeast tip of Australia before it continues northward through the central Pacific Ocean.
Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. We're receiving television from Discovery as Discovery moves just offshore of the West African coast. will serve to change Discovery's orbit from its current 215 nautical mile high point and 206 nautical mile low point to an orbit with a high point of 213 nautical miles and a low point of 206 nautical miles. And will maximize the opportunities for landing for Discovery at the end of shuttle mission STS-63. This is a very small engine firing by Discovery. The resultant change in velocity for the spacecraft is only about 3 feet per second, about 2 miles an hour. Also, the crew's powered up all systems on board in preparation for the release of the Spartan 204 satellite scheduled for 6:25 a.m. Central Time today. A little over an
And Houston Discovery, I'd like to give you a readback of what I've actually typed into the PGSC, just to make me feel good.
Okay, we're ready to copy, Mike.
Just one more time. It's 10 0 Bravo 03 0 Fox 00 2418. Over.
And you got it right, Mike.
Thank you.
Discovery Houston, we're about 90 seconds to a short ZOE. We'll pick you up at the top of the hour. And for Janice, as you proceed through the grappling flight data file, when you get to step 4, we'd like you to hold off connecting the PGS CBIA cable connector to the RMS port.
Copy that. We'll do step 4 on your call.
Good readback.
And Houston Discovery, the time I gave you for the Phobos door close was when I sent the command. Looking at the status check, I see it is still open. I'm going to resend the command with your go.
Discovery Houston, we're go, Mike, for you to resend the command to close the door.
Roger, Houston.
This is Mission Control Houston again. This view from a television camera at the end of Discovery's mechanical arm, showing the alignment fixture at the top of the Spartan satellite.
Houston 5B in work.
Copy, Discovery.
And Spartan now on its way to the release position. Again, Spartan will spend 2 days flying free from Discovery, performing 40 hours of science observations using the far ultraviolet imaging spectrograph mounted on the satellite. Spartan's observations and studies will encompass gathering information that is hoped to help determine the composition and volume of the interstellar medium. The interstellar medium is the gas and dust which fills the space between the stars, and it's the material from which new stars and planets are formed. Among the astronomical targets that will be observed by Spartan are the Orion Nebula, an example of a cloud of interstellar material which is excited to glow by far ultraviolet light, and the Cygnus Loop, which is an example of a supernova remnant. Payload Deploy and Retrieval Systems Officer reports a release now, with the arm backing away from the Spartan satellite. Again, Spartan will perform a pirouette maneuver. That's as part of its pre-programmed timer.
Discovery. Spartan is clear.
And we copy, Volodya.
Into that call from Mission Specialist Vladimir Titov on board that Spartan is clear.
Okay, good morning, America. Give Discovery a call, please.
All right, Discovery, this is Good Morning America. Charlie Gibson in New York. Can you hear me?
Good morning. You're loud and clear, and we're ready.
All right, you look like a portrait hanging in a museum, the four of you left to right there. It's good to have you with us. Let me start with Commander Weatherby, because, Commander, yesterday we saw the pictures as the two ships approached one another. We saw the pictures, but you have to tell me about the emotions that were involved for all of you aboard.
Well, first I need to thank my crew publicly. They did an outstanding job, and I simply did what they told me to do. There was a lot of seriousness in the cockpit because we didn't want to make any mistakes. We had a job to do. We were checking the handling qualities of the vehicle and the navigation sensors, etc. But I got to tell you, in the back of our minds, we were thinking this is a pretty great world we're living in here when we can have the space programs of two of the largest nations in the world getting together and performing an event like this. It was pretty neat.
But what was so extraordinary to me, Commander, is there you are literally in the middle of nowhere. I mean literally in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden an oasis, an outpost, other human life right next to you, even though you're so far away from anything.
It was unbelievable, and I think stunningly beautiful, made more emotional for us because we know Vladimir. We've been working with him for the last year, and he's become such a close friend of ours. And he spent over a year on that vehicle, and it was his home. And when we saw it, it was amazing. Later on, as we started to separate and they started to rotate and they started firing some of their jets and we were firing our jets, it was a ballet of violence. You could see the jets firing, and it's simply incredible, unbelievable.
Well, that leads me actually to Colonel Titov, because, Colonel, there is a famous expression in this country that you can't go home again. But go home again you did, because that was home for a year. Can you describe the emotions when you saw your old home?
Right now, with my crew, I'm feeling okay, and yesterday we had a very nice meeting with my old house, and after that flight, I think we will go to Russia, and we will have opportunity to meet with crew who flying on board Mir right now. A little bit later, maybe in a couple months later, and I think we will have time, and we will have a subject for explain each other.
But Colonel, there was an amazing picture where we could see your face through the window looking up at the Mir, and you couldn't take that grin off your face.
Yes, we really was very close to each other, and Alexander Starenko and Lena Kondakova and Valery Polyakov show for us his faces. We show for them our faces, and we had a good conversation, and it's very nice time. It's extremely nice time.
Colonel Titov, before we leave you, Commander Weatherby spoke a little bit in Russian to the crew there. Do you want to give me a rating on his Russian?
Да, но мы можем сейчас уже общаться на русском языке, и мы можем говорить на английском. Okay, yes, we can talking between each other in English and in Russian, but this is a good way for us because our countries right now are very close to each other, and we choose one way in our life, and if right now we in space together, it's nice.
Well, Commander Weatherby, diplomacy, I guess, kept him from a full rating there. Colonel Collins, let me talk to you. You could have docked, essentially, yesterday, right? I mean, if that had been the mission...
Well, I would say the way we flew, yes, we could have docked, but practically, we could not because we don't have the actual hardware to do the docking. There's the mission that will fly this summer will have a docking tunnel and a docking port that will allow them to make contact with the Russian space station. We didn't have that on our mission. We're basically just a test flight testing out the procedures for the docking mission this summer.
But what was so extraordinary to me is that that's the first time I've ever seen two giant machines like this flying in such close orbit. And it looked to me as if it would have been simple enough had you had the docking equipment to simply move up and actually come together.
Right. There's no doubt that we would have been able to dock based on the way everything went. I did want to say that, yes, I did get a chance to look at the space station also, and it was huge. It was black and white and silver and gold, and it was just a very, very pretty sight.
Mike Fold, you're a little bit off screen, so if you can lean slightly to the right, we'll see you. And I love the microphone just floating in air there. But, Mike, there are still obviously tricky parts to all this cooperation. I mean, it took negotiations right up to the last minute before we could work out the arrangements where you could go within about 35 feet of the Mir. Does it indicate that that it's not so much the equipment, it's that there's as many tricky parts on the ground as there are up in space?
Well, I think you put your finger on it. The major part of this mission may have been the coordination between our countries in making it come about. And indeed, you've seen how, when you ask Jim and Vladimir how they speak Russian and English to each other, you know, that's one problem we have to overcome, which is language. And also we have different ways maybe of doing things, approaching the same problems, but sometimes coming up with different answers. And learning each other's techniques in solving these things is exactly what this mission is all about. And in fact, as we go on towards the docking missions and we build up towards Space Station Alpha, I think you're going to see that we learn more about not just Russia and America, but all the other international partners in the space station program. Excuse me, we'll go through the same process, you know, once again and again, each time we fly these flights.
Mike, you raise an interesting question. When the docking missions actually occur, what language will they work in? Will they work in American, I should say that to you as a Britisher, or will they work in Russian?
Really, on a practical level, in a crew, we'll use whatever word that comes to our heads that we feel will get the point across. I think there will be some protocol agreements, maybe between control centers on certain key moments, and operationally there'll probably be a convention to use one language or another based on which vehicle you're on and who really is more responsible for it. But I think at a crew level, when you're working together, I know that all of us enjoy practicing the other's language, and we try our stuff out on the other guys.
Well, you should actually have them try out a little of the King's English on this one. Colonel Collins, let me turn to you one more time, because so much has been made of the fact that you are the first female pilot on a shuttle mission. Is too much made of the first woman this, the first woman that? Or, in other words, are they still milestones? Are they still important, or do you think it's just a matter of course now?
Well, I think what really matters is what people are interested in. And I know that there's a lot of people who are interested in, a lot of women who are interested in being pilots, and there's a lot of women who are interested in being astronauts. And it's good for people to know that those opportunities are open to them. And I think my role in this job is maybe bringing some attention to that so more young people can choose those jobs as careers.
Well, that's a good point. Commander Weatherby, let me finish with you. I was fascinated yesterday watching that you were taking pictures of the cosmonauts on the Mir, taking pictures of you, and they were taking pictures of you, taking pictures of them. When it's all finished, are you taking your own pictures, or do you have to ask NASA for copies?
I think the pictures that NASA takes are public domain, and they're available to anybody, and hopefully that would include me. I'd certainly like to take home some pictures of the beautiful space station Mir, and I'd like to see some pictures of our vehicle, which is truly incredible.
Well, I guess you can't take your own cameras, but they'll give you copies, I'm sure, when it's all over. It's a great treat to talk to all four of you. Thank you very much. Have a safe journey home.
Thank you very much.
Charlie Gibson, Good Morning America. Thank you very much for joining us. Next discovery will be Scott Pelley of CBS Evening News. Go ahead, Scott.
Good morning, one and all. Thank you very much for taking some time to be with us today.
Good morning.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on a marvelous bit of flying yesterday. I think everyone down here on Earth was tremendously impressed with how smoothly all of that went. It looked easy, but I know it couldn't have been.
Well, when all is said and done, it ended up being easy, but that was, it didn't start out to be that way. We, of course, have been training for about a year in the simulator. It's certainly a team effort. There are a lot of instructors in Houston. There are folks in Moscow that were helping us train, sometimes in the middle of the night in America as we went in and trained, but of course it's all fun. As we came up to the mission, there were still many concerns and people having meetings and discussing things, and of course our leaking jet, and it wasn't clear to us that we were going to receive the go until we went in. And I mentioned to the ground that we were going to rely on their best judgment and do whatever they said, as we always do. And they didn't need to tell me until we got to the point of making the decision, and then if we were cleared to go, we were ready to go.
I'd like to spend the rest of our time together talking about a few policy questions. I know you're all pilots and scientists, but I'm very interested in your perspective on some things that have been said in Washington about the NASA budget since you all have been in orbit. Over the weekend, the Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, said that, in his opinion, NASA had lost its entrepreneurial edge. He even wondered whether the agency should have been disbanded after Apollo. Commander Weatherby, why should government be in the space business today?
Well, I don't even think the question should be asked. There are so many benefits in the space program, and it's well worth the small amount of money that goes into the space program. It benefits a huge number of people around the world, not just Americans and not just Russians, but everyone around the world. As we improve technology, medical technology increases, we make the world a better place to live, and after all, that's what we're all about, is making the world a better place for future generations.
Commander, another question for you, if I may. As you well know, the shuttle budget has been cut about $1 billion since 1993, and now there are plans to cut about another 2,500 jobs before the end of the century. How do you maintain the same safety and reliability with those cuts?
Through excellence. You have to find the best people for the right job, and that's one of the things that NASA does best, is find the right people for the job. They put them in there, they train them well. My crew is an outstanding example of people who work well together. They get the job done. I could not have flown the docking mission alone as we approached. It was a great choreography of 6 people doing 6 different jobs, all of them outstandingly well. And I just, of course, did what they told me to do and pulled it all out.
Well, and again, as I said before, it worked out marvelously well yesterday. But with the shuttle budget, Commander, cut 30% since 1993, are you, as the commander of a space shuttle flight, feeling any squeeze, if you will, in terms of safety or in terms of being able to do all the things that you feel are important?
If we find the right people for the job and they stay at it and they do their homework, then no, I don't feel any qualms at all about climbing on top of a vehicle that has millions of pounds of explosive propellant on it. As long as we're doing the job correctly. If we stop doing the job right, then we need to take a step back and pause and look at our methods and improve.
If I could move on now, perhaps to Colonel Collins with a couple of questions. Colonel, many, if not most, NASA functions are run by private contractors already. Taking a cue from Speaker Gingrich, do you think government can get out of manned spaceflight? Do you see a future of private manned spaceflight?
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, that normally government does things initially that cannot be done by private companies. For example, defense. Space began as a government with NASA began as a government project, and I think as the years go by, it's going to become more and more private, more and more commercial. We see that happening now with the space hab that we have here on Discovery right now, which is a commercial enterprise. And it's happening slowly, but there's definitely a future in space for this to transition from government to private and commercial.
Colonel, what do you think of the House Speaker's notion over the weekend that NASA has lost its entrepreneurial edge?
Well, let me say that this was my first launch, and when I walked out to the launch pad 4 or 5 days ago for this mission, I felt very safe because I know the people that worked on this mission and I know the people that put the orbiter together for this flight, and I had total confidence in them, and I felt very safe flying this mission. And
I think we didn't hear the end of that. Colonel, thank you very much. Dr. Foale, I'd like to move over to you just for a moment, if I may. The speaker was wondering over the weekend what America gets from its investment in NASA. What would you tell the speaker about the value received from the money spent?
I would not tell only the speaker, but to anyone in Congress, that NASA provides our children, above all, the chance to dream of a better future. And I think Jim hinted to that, and I must emphasize it. What we're doing is the stuff that people dream about, and certainly they were my dreams when I was a boy, a very small one at 6. And it's very, very important that we fuel those dreams of young children and young people everywhere and let them know that there is a future where we can go on out, explore, and bring people together. So that's what NASA is all about, and not only NASA, but the other space programs that are involved in this.
Do you think the shuttle might be more efficiently run in private hands? Should private contractors take over manned spaceflight and NASA be relegated, if you will, to a research and development role?
Well, I've thought long and hard about that, and my conclusion is everything should be done to stimulate the private enterprise and the commercial aspects of space. And indeed, I think that's going on. But I don't think you should cut or just chop arbitrarily the very, very successful and active programs you have that are done by the government. You should really let history judge and success judge which programs should continue. And I would say right now that the NASA programs are very successful in this area, and so they should continue.
Well said, Doctor. One last question for Commander Weatherby, if I may. Commander, I want to talk to you a little bit about yesterday's rendezvous. It occurs to me that you're an old naval Cold Warrior. How did it feel to you to be snuggling up to a former Soviet spaceship and now reaching across space, shaking hands with your former enemy?
Well, I sent a message down to my wife yesterday, said it's the most beautiful thing I've ever done, with the exception of getting married and having 2 children.
I don't think we can top that. One and all, thank you very much. Come home safely, and the country's very proud of you. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Discovery is in a co-elliptic orbit that's about 2 miles lower than the orbit of the Mir space station. Discovery is also about 101 nautical miles away from that space station, opening at about 11 nautical miles per orbit. As far as our distance from the Spartan spacecraft goes, Discovery is now about 5 nautical miles away from that small spacecraft, and is opening the distance between it and that observatory at a rate of about 4 nautical miles per orbit. All systems on Discovery continue to perform very well as it makes its 20th flight. On board Discovery, the crew is busy working in the Space Hab module, and that module is visible now in the forward part of the payload bay.
a lot, Mike.
You're welcome, Story, and after this is finished, I can put the latch stuff on.
Discovery for Mike.
Go ahead, Houston.
We'll change our minds. We don't need the latching. We prefer the Glow 2 video. Check out your IFM.
Oh, moment of truth. And Story, I guess do you want to see, when do you want us to stop the Spartan playback? It's right in the middle of the pirouette right now. I guess we should wait for it to finish its little dance.
Yeah, at the end of the pirouette, it'd be fine. And we do appreciate you getting this for us. We know you got to do a lot of hunting and all to get this up.
Well, it seems like a blur for me now, Story.
Thanks, Mike.
And that's the Crystal docking port that we saw, and it was just hanging right in front of us. It seemed as if we could touch it, although of course it was 40 feet or so away. And that's the main window, Houston, we're looking at there in the core module.
Copy.
And Houston, I presume you want us to continue with this while it's good, is that correct?
Discovery for Mike.
Houston, go ahead.
Yeah, we need about 3 minutes of astroculture, and then we can come back here.
Okay, Story, we'll pause this and switch over.
Thank you.
And Houston, you can see how well it was lit up at night with just the payload bay lights of the shuttle and our docking light on.
Sure can, Mike.
Of course, there you see the target assembly, Story, in the crystal. And someone's looking at someone there, yeah?
Yes.
That's Elena Kondakova, at least her elbow, yeah? That's Polyakov. That's Lena again.
That window is big enough to sun yourself in.
I agree, Story, it's huge. Epicosmonastic. And that's Valeria Polyakov. Story, you got a feel for how close it looked to us, because you can see the window framed in that shot.
Yeah, that's even closer than it looks when it's something that big.
And Houston, I think it was about this time we were at the closest approach, and Jim made his little speech in Russian and English.
Okay, Mike.
And Houston, I guess you realize that each of those were windows, and Vladimir was just looking at each of them to see who was there. And they can open and close them rather like the iris of a camera, I think.
Thanks, Mike.
And here again is the docking adapter, the crystal. And then Soyuz that's just below it, out of view.
Wow.
Story, that was all part of the tape. It's just the camcorder got knocked.
Okay.
These are new solar array mounts, Story, that are going to be placed on Mir. This is the progress.
Mike, we enjoyed the tour immensely, enjoyed reliving the great day that we all had yesterday. We are a minute to a TDRS LOS here, pick you up at 12 hours and 42 minutes. Unfortunately, we will not have KU band on TDRS West.
Well, Story, we'll just pause it here and proceed with Glow, I think. Oh, I understand what you're saying now. We can just leave it queued up and we'll play it back whenever you have time.
Thanks so much, Mike.
The rest of the story is the fly around, which is pretty impressive. And there's also some pretty good scenes at night.
Yes, sir. We only got a few more seconds with you.